Revenge films.
My wife's sense of taste went haywire after our daughter was born. What I mean by her sense of taste going haywire is that, for example, when she makes exotic recipes like curry, she adds grated apples, bacon, and a rather strange fruit that I never heard of as secret ingredients to her exotic curry. She adds a lot of honey to the barbecue sauce when we have barbecue parties at home. She even brings around packs of sugar, saying that it's a travel flavoring to sprinkle on her food whenever she eats out. Why do I have to eat this overly sweet food when it should be savory? I hope I don't get diabetes. For some reason, my parents like my wife's cooking. My mother even commented,
"It's avant-garde."
As for my parents-in-law,
"This is how our daughter is, you know."
I feel betrayed. I feel like I'm surrounded by enemies on all sides. Our 5-year-old daughter hates her mother's cooking.
"This tastes bad."
But whenever Daisy complains about the food, Wilma slaps her hard. But when I get angry at her for slapping our daughter, she explains,
"I'm trying to educate our daughter this way. Don't stop me from disciplining Daisy."
She barks at me. What education? All I see is an angry woman for not getting her cooking appreciated. Then one day, she cooked a croquette that tasted so sweet, one might wonder if it was made only of honey. Daisy and I had had enough of her extremely sweet cooking, so we protested against it. The next moment, my wife wept and screamed and ran amok. After that, she ran out of the house and drove away in my car. Before Wilma gave birth to Daisy, I didn't have any problems with her cooking, because she only added a little amount of sugar. But now she adds heaps of sugar and honey like she's trying to break a world record or something. I have no idea what caused her to cook like this. Wilma went out of the house, and I don't think she'll be back for at least an hour or so. So I cooked some noodles and didn't take another bite of the croquette. Thankfully, Daisy liked my cooking, and she was so happy that she jumped with joy and said,
"Delicious! It's not sweet!"
The smile on her face is priceless, as she continued to eat what I cooked and actually finished eating it all. I'm so glad that she was able to eat it until her stomach was full. I feel bad for the food that my wife cooks, because it goes to waste every time. Meat and vegetables are expensive, but whenever my wife cooks, the livestock goes to waste despite sacrificing their lives for the humans. I wondered where my wife went. I soon found out that she went to my parents' house, and that she told my parents how I complained about her cooking. She kept on babbling about it 24/7, so that she could let her frustration out. Hearing those complaints, my father called me, and he demanded I take my daughter to them early in the morning the next day.
"Come home early tomorrow morning and apologize to your wife in front of your mother and me,"
my father demanded, but of course I declined. When I asked both my parents if they tasted my wife's cooking, they raved about it and praised her cooking skills. I didn't know what was happening anymore. At first I thought there was something wrong with my sense of taste, but our daughter said her cooking tasted bad, so I thought that I wasn't wrong about how my wife's cooking was bad. I want to consult someone about this. But if I consult my coworker about this, I'm sure he'll just tell me not to complain about my wife when she cooks for me every day. So I can't consult him either. I think he'll probably tell me to be thankful to my wife instead, because she cooks for me every day. But I can't thank her for cooking such revolting dishes. Apparently, my parents really think that my wife's super sweet dishes taste really good, and they finished the tofu dish with brown sugar, maple syrup, and mango. My wife stayed at my parents' house for 3 days and told me,
"I won't go back home until you apologize to me sincerely."
To apologize to her means I have to eat those overly sweet dishes she cooks. I don't want to eat her cooking, even if that's the last meal I have to eat. I'm pretty sure that if I keep on eating her overly sweet dishes, I'll become diabetic and die early. I won't let my daughter become diabetic, so I couldn't tell her about that. While thinking of how to deal with the problem that I was facing, I received a call from my father.
"I can't let a bastard like you take care of my granddaughter! I'll take my granddaughter with me!"
That's what he told me on the phone. I would understand it if my wife said that. But when I found out that my wife and parents were headed to my house to take my daughter away from me, I panicked. If my parents took my daughter home with them, she would feel like she's taken to hell. Of course, it would feel like hell for me, too. Just when I was thinking of where we could escape, I received a message that my parents were brought to the hospital by ambulance. According to them, my wife went to their house several times, and she brought different dishes almost every day.
Here, have a taste of these pork ribs and applesauce.
Wilma made another overly sweet dish, and the three of them had a stomachache. All three of them ended up having to go to the hospital. The reason for their stomachache was eating rotten apples. The apples that my wife used for cooking were rotten. Before that incident, both my parents were raving about Wilma's cooking. But when they recovered from the stomachache, and when they came home from the hospital, my parents completely changed their opinion on Wilma, and they started bashing her critically. Apparently, my parents called her parents, and they yelled at them for what their daughter did to them. My parents-in-law were also furious at their daughter, so they're even considering cutting ties with her. Then, having no people on her side anymore, my wife called me crying, but I ignored her at the moment. My wife's cooking is the root cause of all these problems. But my father, who used to love my wife's cooking, said,
I knew when you first introduced me to her that you shouldn't marry that woman!
Shamelessly. I was so stunned and appalled that I was left speechless. It seemed like my parents-in-law were aware of their daughter's crazy sense of taste.
There was nothing we could do to fix her problem.
My wife's not a bad cook, but our daughter is. They came to apologize to me a lot. She was hysterically screaming at me all those times, but
You're the only one for me, and I'm the only one for you. Think of how our daughter would feel. Are you thinking of taking her mother away from her?
she continued.
To love someone is to forgive them, you know?
She said this and that, things that don't make sense. She must have gone haywire. So I decided I was going to take our daughter with me without mercy. By the way, Daisy said this to Wilma.
You always slap me and it hurts! I hate you so much!
She shouted those cold words to her mother. Of course she'd say that. Because her mother fed her unhealthy, bad-tasting food, and she got slapped every time she didn't finish the food on her plate. I don't want that kind of mother either. That's why my daughter chose me, and not once did she consider choosing her mother. With no one on her side now, she started panicking about the divorce. So she called her best friend Felicity to help her, and she brought home Felicity with her. Then the moment she saw me, she said,
If you really love Wilma, you should be able to overcome some taste differences.
She started attacking me, so I responded, Not every problem can be overcome so easily. There are differences that are too big to overcome, in fact. If you say that much, then how about you taste her cooking? Then my wife started humming happily while cooking. Looking at the ingredients that she was using, I could immediately tell that a monstrous dish was going to be served. While waiting for Wilma to finish cooking, Felicity and I sat in the living room. While I was playing games on my phone, Felicity stared at me with a smug look on her face. That's when Wilma finished cooking and walked in with the dish.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Food is served.
Looking at the dish that my wife cooked, Felicity commented,
It looks pretty normal to me. You're just overreacting, Max. I thought that some crazy weird stuff would be in the dish. Like something you would see in a movie or something. I'll have a bite first.
When Felicity took a single bite, she ended up vomiting everything.
What in the world did you cook? This is too sweet. It's inedible. Are you trying to make me diabetic? How dare you serve such an overly sweet dish to me?
Felicity was furious. See, I told you. Looking at her reaction to the food, I felt a little relieved that there was nothing wrong with my sense of taste. Then Felicity continued,
If you keep feeding everyone such overly sweet food, everyone around you will die young.
She said a sharp remark before fuming out the door. That's how Wilma's last ally was gone. After that, we got divorced without a hitch. At first, Wilma grumbled,
No, I don't want a divorce!
but since she physically abused our daughter, she had come to a point of no return. Well, her bad cooking skills were one of the reasons too, though. Even my parents, who were against the divorce at first, finally approved, together with my parents-in-law and her friend. However, even in that situation, Wilma probably doesn't want to admit that her cooking tastes bad, because she still keeps on cooking the same monstrous dishes.
I'm sure that someday you will come to appreciate and like my cooking.
She kept on saying, so in the end, everyone was appalled. Then, after a while, Wilma and I got divorced, and my daughter and I lived together. When Wilma cooked for us, Daisy dreaded sitting in the dining room and eating. But now that I'm in charge of cooking, she now says with a smile on her face,
It's delicious, Dad. You're a good cook.
she praised my cooking skills, and more importantly, she now eats happily, unlike how she used to eat before. As for my ex-wife, I heard that she went back to her parents' house after we got divorced. But her parents know about her unpalatable cooking, so they were dejected. But Wilma didn't care about what other people thought about her cooking. Instead, Wilma thinks,
I'm absolutely sure that if I get better at cooking, he will regret that he dumped me and he'll come running back to me.
I heard she cooks dishes full of sugar every day. Well, I feel bad for Wilma's parents who are living with her, but I'm truly happy to be with my daughter, and I don't have to eat that overly sweet cooking of my ex-wife. As for my daughter,
I will do my best to cook very delicious food, because Mom is not here to cook for us anymore, okay?
she says, and she now helps me around with cooking. Thankfully, Daisy's sense of taste is normal, and she gets better and better every day. So I'm very excited for the years to come.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.